I'm Ana Carcedo again, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the variety trials. And when I start these presentations, I always say, if you're a farmer, you are used to this. It's probably, maybe it's not going to be a lot of new information, but it's just good to recap, to refresh these concepts. So if you choose your variety every year, you know this process. Saying that, I also like to start this with a little bit of history and talking a little bit about how canola changed in United States. So the first record that we have, statistics of canola, is from 1991, which for me it was really surprising when I saw that. That tells you that canola it's a really young crop, and I'm not saying that because I was born in 1991, but also because if you compare with the statistics that we have from like even soybeans or even corn, it goes way later, like even 1970s. So it's kind of a new crop. We're all like, we like to say, like, we do research, we like science, and when we see a graph like this, that we have year in the x-axis and we have acres planted in the y-axis, what we like to do is just draw a line. We draw a regression, and what we can see here, it's how incredible is the increase of acres planted of canola in the United States. So it goes like more than 60,000 acres per year. So it's huge. But this is not all. Like, if we focus on production, and now instead of acres, we have production in pounds in the y-axis, we see that it kind of follows the trend of the acres. And we draw our line, and it's just amazing. It's more than 100 million pounds per year. It's huge numbers, and that tells you how canola has been growing in the United States. It's huge. And then if we want to see some kind of spatial footprint, this map from the U.S. Canola Association tells a lot about it. So just to do a highlight in our region, we can see that North Dakota, it's the leader. It's the number one producer of canola. And also, another thing that you can see here is that we plant spring canola. So, and nothing of this is new, but it's really nice just to see that spatial footprint of where canola is important. Saying that, we can start now talking a little bit about variety selection, and I have like 3 main points that I want to mention. First, when we're talking about canola, it's not like other crops. There is kind of certain options that you might have between open pollinated, synthetic hybrids, and hybrids, even though I guess that probably you're only focusing on hybrids. Saying that, which is the main difference, is that hybrids will have like higher yields than open pollinated varieties, but open pollinated varieties, it's a way easier process to generate seeds. So saying that, it's also way cheaper. Saying that, another point, and it's really nice talking about this after a wheat scientist. Something that's really important when you are considering which variety you are going to choose is which herbicide tolerant canola hybrids you want to choose. Saying that, when we're talking about canola, we have some certain options. We have Roundup Ready, we have Truflex, Liver to Link, we have all the sulfonylureas herbicides, and also we have Clearfield. So we have a broad range of things that we can choose. I like to say this: when you are choosing your variety, you are also here then choosing your weed management strategy. So it's something that you have to consider. You have to consider the history of your field. You have to consider which weeds you have, if those weeds have any kind of tolerance, if you are resistant, you have to consider all these things, which is the role of canola in your rotation. So when you're choosing your variety, you are also choosing your weed strategy. Saying that, the only thing I'm going to mention more about this is that please rotate the mode of action. So let's try to keep our field free from weed tolerant. With resistant weeds. And then the final considerations, like just like the general recommendation that you will probably know, is that you want varieties like hybrids that have consistent yield, they have good lodging score, and then depending also in the diseases that you know that you have in your fields, also black leg scores and sclerotinia scores. That those are the things that you should be checking when you're choosing your variety. And then how to choose your variety, it actually involves a lot of statistics. For that, it's really important to refresh some of these concepts, even though I know it might be a little bit boring, but it's so important. So interpreting agronomical data, it's something that I really like to share with you guys. Before I continue, I have to say I choose variety tries for all the getting it right. So I've been explaining these concepts in previous videos as well. And today I'm going to do it really briefly. If you want to know more about how to interpret agronomical data, please check the previous videos. And also, I know that Lina will be sharing a link of a really nice resources, like 2 pages about how important it is to not just focus on mean and averages. So I'm going really briefly about this is when you are looking and searching for sources of information, just make sure that your source of information is unbiased and you have information across the state and they are following a good experimental design. So when I'm talking about data from NDSU or any other public any other public resources, they follow these 3 rules. So from data from NDSU is completely unbiased. We don't want to sell any product. So we just want to transmit knowledge and we just want to share the truth. We have an amazing extension effort here in the state. So we have all the RECs across the state and they provide such valuable information. And then when we're talking about experimental design, I'm really proud to say that we have amazing agronomists that they carry all these experiments. So everything is done correctly. And what do I mean when I'm saying correctly? So I'm saying that we have repetitions, and then I'm also saying that these repetitions are randomized. So in the previous videos, I explained more about this. So if you want to know more about this, just please go ahead and check them. So another concept that I also always mention is the coefficient of variance. That's a concept that if you want to check more, please check the other videos. But basically, it gives you an idea how far the observations, the individual observation of all these repetitions are from the individual mean. So this is just a graphic representation of that. So if you think the mean is the center of the target and your observations are all over the place, you're going to have a high coefficient of variance. So what I'm more interested now is actually talking about our variety trial booklet. That's it's a lot of work that all the RECs pull together, and I'm just also there just to help to coordinate the edition of this booklet. So it's such a valuable information. So I hope you're using it. In that, I'm just putting here one table just as an example. And what you can see here is that in the top part, you always are going to have a site description and which type of canola are you seeing. Then in the bottom part of this, you can see that we have also management descriptions and some kind of description with some kind of event happen or something like that. And then we have all these columns of such valuable information. But before that, we were just talking about coefficient of variance, right? So we're saying, no, it's kind of like a kind of complex, boring concept, saying, oh, it's how far the observations are from the mean. But actually, what the real meaning that I want you to understand it that gives you an idea of the quality of the experiment. So if you have a high coefficient of variance, that means that that data it was quite noisy. Let's just say like that. The other thing I really want you to focus, and it's all in this bottom part of the table that where we're showing all the statistics, is the LSD, and in this case, it's the 10%. So this is actually the tool that we provide you guys to differentiate significant differences. So basically, when we're saying LSD is like least significant differences, and when we're saying 10% is that it's a p-value of 10%. What does that mean? Is that we have a probability that these values are different by a 90%. So we know that there is only 10% that these are the same. That's what it means. So if just to clean a little bit, I to remove all these tags that I included. So if we focus on yield, use it as an example. In this case, the LSD is 10% is around 200 pounds per acre. Something I like to do is, okay, I just find which was the variety that presented the highest yield. And then I start comparing them with all the rest. And in this case, we have this one here as well, that neither of them have significant difference. So these are the only two that the difference is less than 240. All the rest are significantly, when we're talking about the statistics, they are significantly different. So these are the two with the highest yields, and the other ones are like different. Saying that, this is just one side, and it's kind of hard to make the decision with just that, right? So I pulled together and just make some figures for you guys to show a little bit of all the information. So I make a filter of the varieties that has at least 4 observation. So here I'm not showing all the varieties, and this is just the ranking of that average of different locations. So here's a lot of information if you want to take just a screenshot or something. So keep going. It's not only important to characterize the varieties individually, but it's also really important to know how they behave in different environments. So different environments can be different years because they have different weather, and also it can be different sites. So these are the 5 RVCs that have been putting data together for canola last year. This is just like a ranking of the sites showing that Lyndon had a higher average yield compared to Hettinger in this case in last year. Saying that, it's also really nice to merge this information. So mixing a little bit about how the varieties behave with how these sites behave. And now I'm going to show you just an example of how can you do that. So if we try to put all these sites together in only one axis, just let's say this is the x-axis, and where we're showing only the mean yield in each site, and then in the y-axis we put yield of each variety in each one of these sites. And I'm going to say, let's say we have only 2 varieties that we are testing. This is yellow and this is black. We can see a clear trend here that in this case, this example of variety, the black behave better in all the sites, but this difference actually changed depending in which site we like yes, this gap of difference changes depending on which site we are. I'm showing that this is an oversimplification, because when we see the reality and we're trying to explain this graph, it actually looks like this. It looks like a crazy spaghetti too. So This is exactly the same that I was showing before. In the x-axis, you have the mean yield of each side, and in the y-axis, we have the yield of each variety. And even though we wish it would be as clear as the example I was showing you before, that always the same variety is on top and it behaves smoothly across the curve and it's really easy to choose something, that's not the actual reality. When we are seeing real varieties, what we see is that there is a lot of change in the rankings. So even though we can see that some of them are kind of always above and some of them are always below. So this is also really good information. So as well, if you want to take a screenshot and just check which varieties were there, just do it. Saying that, I just also, just for, I was just checking the time. Just to make it a little bit clearer, I just took the 3 varieties I found that they were always kind of on the top, and I just filtered them. And you can see that they behave really differently. So, for example, if we focus on the blue one here, we can see that even though it was kind of always on the top in all the sites, we can also see that we don't have much information in the lower end. So it's hard to, if you are in a more challenging environment, your fields, your land is a more challenging environment, you actually don't have information to make this decision. But if we focus in the green one, this one, I really like how this one behaved, because even if you were in the high yield environments or in the low yield environments, this variety didn't change much, and that talks a lot about the stability of this variety. So when we are talking about choosing a variety, it's not only about the potential that it has, it's also about the stability. So we never know how the year is going to be. Choosing a stable variety, it's really interesting. And then we have, like, I just chose it to include it as well, just for fun, like the red variety that you cannot really say, like, in some environment, in some of the lower yielding environments, it behaved well. In some of the high yielding environments, it behaved bad. So it's kind of a fun thing to see that it's not really stable in terms of how it behaves in different environments. So something that this is telling you is that data from only 1 year, probably it's not enough to make a decision. So just taking Langdon as an example that provides the data from several varieties across different years, you can see that how much this can change. So these are the same varieties, just different years, and how you still have change in the rankings. There is no, again, one variety that's always on the top. Something that we can see clearly that 2023 was like a challenging year, but also something that we can see is that red variety here, this red line, that it behaved really stable across all these different years. So it won't give you the highest yield, but if you know that you have like a really challenging field that you don't know, you know that you are not going to be attaining potential yields, this seems like a really nice option. So moving forward, this is just to show you, and I'm like actually finishing my presentation now. There is a lot of information in this variety trial guide. So it's not only about yield, it also provides you information about a lot of scorings for different diseases and the scoring for lodging. And this is all information that you also should consider when you're making a decision. It's not just about yield. And saying that, this is just some data that I pulled together from the reported days to flowering and yield. And what we can see here is that there is, well, basically what we cannot see here is a trend. Basically, all the data here is all over the place. So you have varieties that they were like longer, like they started flowering later, that have good yields, and also you have I don't know what happened there. There was a glitch. And then you have also others varieties that they were shorter and they were and they also have good yields. So here's just some time-held messages, and each variety has specific strengths and weaknesses, and you have to consider your environment when you're making these decisions. Of course, consider which herbicide traits, which stress tolerance you need for you to match and tailor to your field, and of course, consider yield. And something that I was leaving for the end, and I'm actually really glad that Venkat also mentioned it, is diversifying soybean genetics. Sorry, I have a typo there. It's canola. Diversifying canola genetics. And this will really help you minimize risk. So diversifying is one of the key options that we need to follow, and just to have like a more stable system. So saying that, some other resources that I really like to share is also the NDown, that it gives you a lot of information about the weather, and it's a really helpful tool in general. And then also the variety try tool that the NDSU provides.